Dyna is officially gone, the Lowrider S. And I'm usually pretty good. Hold on, let me put my glasses on so you can't see the tears streaming down my face. There we go. In memory of the Lowrider S, this is where it once stood, right here in this little spot. Hey, what's up you guys? John's Motor Garage. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share with you 2 things that you should never do when either buying or selling a motorcycle. 2 things that can really cause you to lose a lot of dinero, maybe cause you to lose some sleep, can potentially cause a lot of heartache.
Yikes.
Alright, we got that one out of the way. So 2 things you never want to do when, one is going to be when buying a bike, the other is going to be when selling a bike. And stay tuned to the end, I'll explain to you why I'm the hypocrite and why I actually did both of these things, which is why I'm doing the video on it. So the first thing, you do not want to buy a motorcycle without having the title in hand. Now there are some stipulations, we'll go into this, but so here in the United States, motorcycles have a title. The title basically shows, it's going to have the VIN number, the owner's name, the mileage, whatever the mileage was when it was last registered, and it's going to show some other information. You can see if there's any liens on the vehicle. In some cases, not as much anymore with a lot of people doing electronic liens. Now there are going to be a few scenarios where you wouldn't have a title in hand. One would be if the person has a loan or a lien still on the vehicle, which means they're making payments to the bank, so the bank holds the title. Once they pay it off, the bank would send them the title in the mail. So that's one case, and that's a whole video topic in and of itself. We're not going to go too much into that. If you do buy a vehicle where there's a lien or a loan, you want to go through the bank and you want to make sure you have all the proper paperwork, like a bill of sale, a power of attorney. Make sure that the person, you know, doesn't owe more than what you're paying them, and if they are, make sure that it's fully getting paid off. Make sure that they're going to send the title to you and that you have everything you need. So again, that could be a video all on its own. Another reason they may not have the title, they lost it. Now if they're the owner and they lost it, that's a simple fix. You go to the DMV and you get a duplicate title. That shouldn't be a problem. But if they're not the registered owner and they lost the previous title, then you're kind of SOL. There's things you can do to get what's called a bonded title, but that's a big headache. I've never done it personally, but I've done a little bit of research, enough to know it's not something I personally want to deal with. In some cases it can be worth it, but again, do your research there. And then another reason they may not have the title is if it's stolen. And obviously if it's stolen, you don't want to be messing with it. So why do you not want to buy a motorcycle without the title? Well, the obvious reason is you're not going to be able to do anything with that bike. You have a motorcycle, you can ride it, but if you get pulled over, you're busted, you're not a registered owner, and you're not going to be able to transfer that title, get it registered, or do any of that stuff without the title. So in my case, I went out, looked at the bike, liked it, I looked at the title, everything looked good on the title, the VIN matched up, but in Arizona you have to have the title notarized, and we went to get it notarized and there was no notary at the bank. I was in somewhat of a hurry, the seller was in somewhat of a hurry, and so what we ended up doing is I said, hey, it just turned out he happens to work like right near where I live here, and I said, hey, why don't you just get it notarized? This was over the weekend. I said, go get it notarized and then we'll meet up during the week and I'll pick up the title. Now, the only time that I will do that is after I've already met the person, I've already looked at the title, I've already ridden the bike, and I'm taking the bike back to the house. You still run a risk though. You know, at that point, if they wanted to, and this is where you make that judgment call, you know, after you've already met the person, but if they wanted to, they could technically go out, get a title loan on it, they could do all kinds of crazy stuff, and again, you're SOL if they choose not to, you know, not to work with you after that point. In this case, I chose to do it because it was kind of like a convenience issue. It happened to be convenient for the 2 of us, and again, I had met the dude and was not too sketched out that he was gonna, you know, try to pull a fast one. All right, case number 2. This is when it comes to selling a motorcycle. When you sell the bike, rule of thumb is cash in hand, to be as safe as possible, go to the bank and verify funds and do all that. Some people like to do cashier's checks. Some people have even done personal checks. Let me tell you a story. I once sold a Toyota Tundra. I forget the exact amount, but I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of $17,000 to $18,000. And I kid you not, I took a personal check for the sale of the vehicle. But the reason I did that is because the lady showed me her checking account and was able to show me that she had the funds in there. She had like $40,000, $50,000, and it was, $17,000, $18,000 vehicle. And then secondly, I held the title. She said she was okay with me holding the title until I got the check cashed and cleared. So technically, yeah, she could have taken the truck and then something could have happened, with those funds, or she could have gotten in an accident or something. We had a bill of sale written up and all that. But in this case, again, it was over the weekend and it worked out. I gave her the truck, I took the check, I kept the title, and then I went to her credit union and cashed it, and they're like, whoa, what are you doing trying to cash this check? And anyway, it all worked out. But here's what I did with the motorcycle. This was the Lowrider S. I had a guy fly in from out of state. We spoke on the phone earlier. The problem with out of state stuff is if you're flying, airplanes have a limit. I think it's like no more than $10,000 that you're supposed to fly without some special paperwork or I don't know what. And I've heard horror stories where people have actually lost, had their funds confiscated, and it's just such a mess such a headache with, if not nearly impossible, trying to get the funds back from the government or whatever, whoever steals them or takes them. So anyway, it's sketchy to fly with big chunks of change, and in this case, the motorcycle, let's just say I was selling it for over $15,000. And so the question was, the dude's flying in and he banks with a bank that's not here local. It's not one of the big names like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all that stuff. So it's a question of how do you get the funds, right? So anyway, I literally have the check right here. I'll probably not talk about it in this video. At some point I'll disclose how much I sold that bike for, but here's a check for over $15,000. The bike is no longer in my possession, and this is sketch. This is one where, well, let me go try to cash it, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. Oh man, that is a breath of fresh air. So fortunately the check cleared. Let me jump back on the bike and we'll talk a little bit about it. Alright, so again, let me kind of set up the picture. So I'm selling a bike. I got a guy flying in from out of state. It's on a weekend. He can't bring the cash on the plane with him because he could risk having it confiscated or whatever. It's just a big, headache. The bank that he's with, in addition to it being the weekend and the banks are closed anyway, he doesn't bank with there's no local branch where I live. What we decided to do was Cashiers Check. The cool thing with Cashiers Check is if he decides not to buy the bike, just goes back to the bank and they get it reversed or whatever. And then of course, if I decide to buy the bike, I take it to my bank, and it's not a personal check, it's a cashier's check, so it's a little bit more guaranteed or something like that. But of course, the problem is there can be fakes out there, and I'm not going to know until I go into the bank to deposit, right? So for obvious reasons, there's a lot that could potentially go wrong, because the person in this case, they looked at the bike, decided to buy it, and they were gone. They had the bike, they had the title, and I'm here with a cashier's check for the sales price that I was looking for. But I have to wait at least about 24 hours before I know whether or not that check is cleared and legit. And so for me, that's something that you probably don't want to risk it. It's just not worth it. Again, I'm a gambler. I take risks. In my case, I made a judgment call based off, talking to the dude and speaking with him multiple times. And so I decided to do it. It kind of was the thing that worked out for the two of us. And fortunately, it panned out. So yeah, this is part 2. Now I'm going to go pick up that title that I hadn't picked up. Honestly, in general, those are things that I would recommend you guys never do. Typical John's Motor Garage fashion, do as I do, not as I, or no, do as I say, not as I do. Learn from my mistakes. If you want to find a hypocrite, you have come to the right place. Oh my gosh, dude, that car totally cut me off, bro. I definitely would not have done either of those things had it been my first rodeo, and if I didn't understand really how the system works. I would be playing it very safe. I wouldn't be risking it like that. All right, moment of truth. See if I get this title. I did two things I never recommend anybody do when either buying or selling a motorcycle, and I did them both. I ran a risk, and we're gonna see if things end up working out. Oh, cool. Well, there you have it, John's Moto Garage. We made it back in one piece. Live and live, you know. All right, you guys, adios.